guys, welcome back to our Non-Toxic Podcast. I'm Hannah and I'm here for episode 70. Woo! Okay, thank you for your applause. Welcome back. It is yesterday if you're listening on release day, which I always love to see. I would be lying if I said I don't check real-time updates from the podcast analytics on release day. So thank you to the 12 of you who always watch the YouTube video before I even have a chance to announce it or post online. I don't know who you are, but you are the unsung heroes of my life and soul. And I will leave you everything I own. I swear every single time I log on to youtube.gov to go find the link, to go share it to Instagram, to tell people to go listen to it. There's already like 10 to 12 listeners every single week without fail. And I'm not sure if people listen to it like I do with other podcasts where I listen to it as I'm getting ready for my day. And I have to have like my 3 to 4 comfort podcasts in order to put my makeup on. I can't do it in silence. I can't do it with music. It has to be the YouTube version of a podcast that I enjoy. If I am that to anyone, it would be, no kidding, the honor of a lifetime. The podcasters that I listen to whenever I get ready hold such a dear place in my heart. And I wish I could say it was something inspirational, motivational, overall helping my life, helping better me in any way. It's not. It's the Canceled Podcast with Brooke and Tana. Love it. Feel like they're my besties. It's the Broski Report, which had me cackling out loud this morning whenever I was watching it. So good. Brittany Broski is one of the funniest people I have ever encountered online in my life. Sometimes it's the Tiny Meat Gang podcast, but not really so much anymore. I listen to a lot of Brooke and Connor make a podcast, also hilarious. And then Brooke Averick has her own podcast called Obsessed with Brooke Averick, and it's amazing because I also am obsessed with a great many things. If you need any recommendations, like I said, I don't really dabble in this nonfiction space with podcasts or anything else. Everything I do is funny. And it's just nice to keep it light sometimes. I'll go through a phase every so often where I really want to learn and better myself and listen to leadership podcasts or fitness podcasts or wellness. But for a while, I've just been wanting to have something light and a little palate cleanser because the day can be hard. And I realize I work in social media, so it's like, girl, how hard can your day be? But some updates. Thank you for all the love and all the questions that everyone sent in for the last episode with my husband. I wasn't really sure how it was going to go because it's just, you know how you can talk like on the phone with no one around and it's okay. And the second you have to make a phone call in front of your friends, you just get awkward and you feel like your voice is different. I don't feel like I put on that much of a front or like a persona to podcast. Everything I do is pretty much exactly how it would be if we sat across from each other and had coffee. But it just is awkward whenever you're with your husband because it's almost like I can't stop laughing. It's like we would be the troubled kids in class that have to get separated because we can't stop giggling long enough to do our book report. That's how I expected this to go. So it flowed a lot better than I was anticipating. I thought he was going to make fun of me more. And honestly, I feel like he did a pretty good job. So props to him. And I was shocked at how many questions got sent in. And there were several that were a little bit not appropriate for what I'm comfortable with talking about in front of my mom and or grandparents who listen to this. Also, things I just might not want out there for public consumption. But if you ask me in my DMs, I will answer all of your questions because there's some curious people out there. So let me know. But we had our Vegas trip over the past 5 to 6 days since the last episode was recorded. And it was so much fun. As always, let me give you a little recap. I'll keep it brief, not really. So we flew out on Friday morning, and as is my luck, we had a delay. We get to the airport. I think we're supposed to fly out at like 10:45, and immediately we have a 2-hour delay, which it's the most inopportune timing for a delay because, of course, we get to the airport. We had already packed up, didn't have any breakfast because we had a layover in Dallas. Dallas is where all the good... Well, actually, no, we didn't have a layover. Just kidding. We had intended to get to Vegas in time for lunch. That was the plan. Sorry for the confusion. So I had like a little coffee and that was about it. We get to the airport. As soon as we're there through security, 2-hour delay. And in Springfield, there's nothing to do. There's no little gift shops. There's no spa where you can put your feet in those little fish pools and they nibble all the dead skin off like they have in some airports because they do. There's just nothing to do. There's one coffee shop. And it also feels silly to be in Springfield the entire morning and then go to the airport and then buy a coffee. But I also really wanted one. And I don't know. It was just a silly thing. These are all very first world problems. But we get to the airport and, of course, immediately delayed. So I get my computer out and I start working. And again, as is my luck, I had 3 or 4 clients text me and want something immediately, which isn't bad. If I'm at my office, I'm always happy to deal with last minute requests or handle these things as they pop up. But whenever I'm at the airport and I had worked so hard all week to get everything done in advance, it just like heightens my anxiety for no good reason. And I sit down, we're already delayed. I'm like, you know what? It's okay. It's going to be fine. And I've had so many different situations, specifically with Vegas, where my travel plans are just completely shot. I'll go into that in a second. But off the bat, I'm just getting nervous. I'm getting nervous about if we're going to make the trip at all, because it's a shorter trip. It's only 4 days, including travel time. And my clients are texting me. I woke up with just a weird knot in my stomach for no reason. Sometimes these things just happen. It's just a perk of being an anxious person. But you just see things online and you're like, oh, that's something I didn't know I should be worried about. Now I am. It was one of those. And it was gloomy outside and things just were not boding well for my psyche. We finally get on the flight, have the whole thing. It's great. I listened to A Court of Mist and Fury audiobook on the plane, calmed me way down. Love to read about fairy wars to make me just feel at ease as a person. Doodled, got ink all over my hands. It was great. First night, amazing. We just went to eat at this restaurant called Buddy V's, which is like the Cake Boss. If you ever watch the Food Network, no one cares. We ate a lot of pasta. Great. Keep in mind, when you fly from Springfield to Vegas, when you're going east to west, you gain 2 hours. So like we flew and we landed at what was going to be 6 p.m. Missouri time. So we landed at 4. And it just throws you off because then we have a late lunch and then we get ready and then we have a late dinner. Our dinner's not until 9 o'clock. So it's really 11 o'clock back home. But then you end up staying up until 1 a.m., which is actually 3 a.m. And then you sleep in until 10, which is really only 8 a.m. It's just a whole, whatever. It's a whole thing. And you would be surprised at how much it jacks with your sleep schedule for just a short window of time. But I'm not kidding you whenever I say I consumed probably 8 to 10,000 calories every single day I was there, because we'd have breakfast. And of course, I'm going to get a coffee. I'm going to get pancakes, whatever the sugariest option on the breakfast menu is. And then we're going to have a lunch, probably not healthy, probably going to get an appetizer, maybe a drink, all these things. Then we're going to get ice cream or gelato or some kind of a sweet treat. And then you go take a nap, you get ready for the evening. Then I get a second coffee with my sister-in-law because we both have to have an extra source of energy because we're going to stay up super late again. So we have a pre-dinner coffee. It's going to be sugary. Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be? Then we have dinner, appetizers, multiple, dinner, not healthy, dessert at the restaurant. And then after that, the boys go and gamble. My sister-in-law and I hang out. Then maybe we get another coffee because why wouldn't we? We're on vacation and the coffee over there is really, really good. Or we go get ice cream or we go wander around and find a different kind of treat because in Vegas, all the businesses and the bakeries are open until like midnight because it's Vegas. So if you want a slice of pie, if you want like a cookie, a snickerdoodle, if you want a cup of ice cream, anything at 11:45 p.m., you can do that. But guess what? It's 1:45 p.m. at home. So spending the entire weekend eating like, I can't even, like a pig with slop, like a pig eating really expensive slop, just stuffing my face. I'm not kidding whenever I say I was so bloated, I could not, it hurt to put pants on. I just ate so much food and then your digestion gets all messed up whenever you're traveling. Not that I'm going to get into that because that's TMI, even for me. But I felt like I had a rock in my stomach and it's the kind that you can't even suck in. It was permanent. I felt so unwell, but also when you're on a trip, you don't want to say, oh, I'm just going to have a salad. Like, no, that's not why we came all the way. I didn't come all the way here to get a salad. I came here to get the 3-story lasagna and the chocolate mousse cake and then go get ice cream afterwards. That's what I came here for. I don't gamble. The gamble that I take is with my cholesterol. So I did do everything I could to enjoy it. And we had the best time. It was my in-laws, Austin's parents, and then my brother and sister-in-law, and then the two of us, obviously. And the funny thing about that is that whenever we all first met, of course, I already knew Austin at this point, but one of the first things that we did as a family was go to Vegas. So Austin and I met in February of 2019, and Jake and Brooke, my brother and sister-in-law, had met in December of the previous year. So we all met within like a 2-month span of each other and started to date. And come May of that same year, my in-laws were like, we're taking a family vacation. You should bring the girls. So I get invited on this family trip with my boyfriend at the time of like 4 months-ish. And I'm going to go meet this girl that my brother-in-law is dating that I don't know. I've never met her before. She and I met the day before we were supposed to leave for the trip. We had this like family dinner at Texas Roadhouse where they were giving us the last minute travel plans. Here's where to meet. Here's what we're doing, etc. So I meet her for the first time and she is gorgeous. She's blonde. She's like 5'8". She's got this rockin' bod. She's president of her sorority, just like literal Barbie. She's perfection. So I meet her. I was afraid she was going to be so mean, as you do. You know, I've talked about this before. Pretty girls, we have this bias that they're going to be mean. And she was so pretty. I thought she had to be so mean. And then of course the anxiety of I'm still getting to know this guy. I'm just now meeting his parents. We've had dinner like maybe once or twice over the past couple months, but now we're going on a 5-day trip with them to Las Vegas. I'm going to be rooming with this girl that I don't know. And I'm really sacred about my alone time and my privacy in the way that I can be social all day long if I have some kind of a reprieve or some place to go back to and console myself. Not console. That's a hard word, but like just regroup. And if I can have a quiet time to like take my makeup off, scroll on my phone, not be social, like just turn off basically. And to know that I was going to be sharing a room with this girl that I'm already feeling a little bit intimidated by and not have any space to myself made me a little nervous. But we fly out there, and the very first day we have like this couple hour gap before dinner. We get back from the hotel or back from the airport to the hotel, and she and I check into her room and we're blown away. It's like the nicest room. We're like, oh my gosh, what is this? What is life? And we like showered, changed into our little robes. We felt like we were in a sitcom, a made for TV, like romance movie. We were like, what is going on? And I remember we just sat in our robes on these giant beds in our magnificent hotel room. And we spent probably 2 hours just talking and catching up and getting to know each other and talking all about how, like, I was so nervous to meet you. I thought you were going to be so mean. And she's like, I was nervous to meet you. And we seriously went back and forth. And it was the most wholesome, like beautiful representation of girlhood and just talking about our relationships and how happy we were and how we were both so nervous. And we just became besties on that trip and we never looked back. And it was so much fun to have a friend in that like nerve-wracking week. And we kind of daydreamed and like joked about like, oh my gosh, what if these are the boys that we're going to marry? Like, wouldn't that be so crazy? Fast forward, we did marry them. And there's obviously so much more that I could get into and I could have her on. I've had like some messages before saying I should bring her on. But if you want that, let me know and I will. I love to exploit my friendships for podcast viewership. But she came on and, or not, sorry, I'm distracted. She has just been the most magnificent sister-in-law. And obviously she was my maid of honor. I was her maid of honor. And to think about that first trip to Vegas where we were just meeting and there was so much anxiety and trepidation, and to see everything that has happened since then. And then to go back to Vegas almost 5 years later, it's almost our 5-year friendiversary. Austin and I just had our 5-year dating anniversary, which he says that we don't celebrate anymore, but I still do because it's a milestone. And she and Jacob had their 5-year dating anniversary in December. So just all these crazy things, like 5 years is such a long time and it feels like the blink of an eye. But at the same time, to picture those two girls that went on that trip, it feels like a lifetime ago. So simultaneously the opposite. But we were both in our feels so much this trip, partly because my husband's turning 30 and I just love him so much. And it's not that I'm sad that he's getting older, because I really don't get sad by aging, whether it's me or him or my friends or anything. It's not the aging so much as the fact that our relationship, like our lives are going to have a set period together. Like we will be together until one of us passes away, hopefully a long time from now. And say we're going to be together for 60 years. We've already been together for 5 of those years, and it makes me sad because I love him so much. I want to maximize every single year that I get with him. And to think that I'm already 5 years in, even if I still have 55 years left, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's flying by. Like I don't have enough time, because I just think he's amazing and precious and I just love life with him. Sorry, gag. I don't mean to be so cheesy, but I just get emotional. And when he ages, every year, I cry on his birthday. I cry on my birthday. It's just the concept of time passing, I think, that really gets me a little emotional, a little verklempt, but I'm dealing with it. Then couple that with the fact that we're reliving all of these same memories. It's the same group of us 6 going back to stay at the same hotel in the same city that kind of kickstarted this entire thing and this amazing friendship that I've had and relationship. And we were just talking the whole time about how everything is different, and just I didn't have my business at the time. I was still 2 years away from even starting it, and she was finishing up college, and my brother-in-law was finishing up playing baseball in college, and my husband had a different job. Like there's just so much that has changed obviously in 5 years, and all of it has been to result in this amazing stage that I feel like I'm in now. But it just is very nostalgic to think about, and maybe that was a waste of however many minutes I spent talking about it, but it just really got me. And you just never know like what groundwork is being laid, because I do remember so vividly back then feeling like I was on a trip with strangers, and then these strangers would become my family. And like that girl that I shared a hotel room with one time in 2019 is going to be the aunt to my kids, and that's just mind-boggling to me. So we were feeling very special about all that, and we had such a blast because she doesn't gamble either. So we had a really fun time just kind of gallivanting around the hotels and shopping. We did so much shopping. We walked 4 miles one day just throughout all the malls there. It was actually kind of chilly. It wasn't the weather that I was expecting for the middle of the desert. We got there and it was raining, like pouring down rain, and it was 55 degrees. So I definitely packed not appropriately, but you can do a lot of things in Vegas without ever stepping foot outside, which was my saving grace for this particular trip. But it was pretty uneventful. Like, people think of Vegas being like super debaucherous and you just go and do all of these crazy, heinous things. And we had a pretty boring Vegas trip, which is what we usually do. But it was basically eat, shop, take a lot of Instagram photos in the bathroom, eat again, have coffee, walk around in our nice outfits, watch the boys gamble. And that's about it. So pretty fun time. It was honestly a dream. I just love going to Vegas because it feels like the one place that isn't real that you see in movies and TV and like you read about in books. It's like a fantasy land, but you can actually go there. Like, I can't go to Valaris, unfortunately, which is a place in a book series that I'm currently obsessed with, but I can go to Vegas. And a lot of my favorite pieces of media are set in Vegas. And I feel like it's just so iconic. Even if you haven't been there, you're very familiar with it, or you can picture it in your head. And it's the exact same as you would imagine it to be. So I've always loved going there. I think it's the place in the world that I have been the most times, besides drivable places. But the first time I went there was for my college graduation because, as you might know, I went to college online. I finished my degree at Western Governors University. And since it's an online university, there's not a graduation ceremony in any particular place because there's not a campus. So they have 4 graduation ceremonies every year, and you can pick which one you do based on when your classes finish up. So my classes finish up in, I think, April, and my graduation ceremony was going to be in June of that same year, and it was going to be in Vegas, and that was the first time I had ever been. So my mom and my boyfriend at the time and I all had our little plane tickets to go out there, and we stayed in this hotel that was not even on the Strip, but it was close. And the irony is that I was supposed to fly out on Friday. My graduation ceremony was supposed to be at 2:00 on Saturday, and then we were going to stay for like 3 or 4 more days just to hang out and enjoy it. Well, little did I know, the flight ended up getting delayed like 20 hours. It was delayed until midnight that same night on Friday, then ended up getting canceled and rescheduled for 11 a.m. the next day, which it's a 3.5-hour flight. I ended up missing my graduation ceremony. So we were going to Vegas so I could graduate. I had my cap and gown and everything. I was so excited and didn't even get to go. So that was a good time. But because Allegiant was the reason that I missed it, they ended up giving us like a couple more nights at the hotel and paid for our flights back. Like, they did a really good job at getting everything handled and making it up to us. So I still had a really good time, and now it's a funny memory because I missed my college graduation. So one of those situations, as I have had so many of, where it seems like it really sucks, but it's a good story. And you know what? Sometimes it's a trade-off for me. Like, I would take the not ideal situation a lot of times just for the story. So hang on, let me make not the same mistake where I film for 40 minutes flashing the camera and then have to edit a really unsightly censor button over it. Also, I know I'm dressed kind of like a like a maiden from the old country today, but I like this outfit. So please keep your comments positive or to yourself, or you can say something mean. That's okay. I'm getting to laugh at the mean comments now. And I don't really get, I think, hateful mean comments, but I get people that will say something like, "You look like I could speak your name 3 times in a mirror and you would appear," when I wear a striped shirt. So I get some things that just make me laugh, but you can be mean a little bit. Anyways, what was I talking about? Sorry guys, I'm just feeling real giggly today. It's been one of those weeks. I'm having such bad anxiety, which is why this is titled the anxiety episode, or whatever I'm going to title it in the future. But let me finish talking about Vegas because I'll spend a lot more time talking about anxiety in a second. But the second time I went was with Austin's family. The third time I went was on a couples trip with Austin 2 Decembers ago. Yes. That was a really fun time. We had an easy flight out there, but on the way back, we had gone like December 17th through the 22nd or something, like right before Christmas, because wouldn't you know it, it's really cheap to go to Vegas that week. And we had just the best time hanging out as a couple. And then we flew back. We flew into Tulsa and we were going to drive home, except there was a snowstorm. So we flew back into a snowstorm. We got delayed a couple hours. And of course we had a fight because I was like, "We can drive home, it's no big deal," as someone who was just going to sit in the passenger seat and not pay attention. And then Austin, noticing that the interstates were closed and like everything was completely shut down, was like, "I don't think we're going to do that." So then I'm getting stressed out because you know how it is whenever you're coming back from a trip and you are just antsy to get home and you want to do your laundry and like get settled in. Plus it's the day before Christmas. So Christmas Eve. And I just wanted to be home on the 22nd so I could prepare. And like I had plans with my friends just to do cute little Christmas things and whatnot. So I just was getting antsy. And of course, safety goes all out the window whenever I'm thinking about my Christmas plans. But we ended up having to stay the night in this really, really shitty airport hotel with like carpet peeling up, and I swear there were like blood stains in the water, the shower. It was not ideal, but it felt like one of those oddly heartwarming communities because all of us that got stranded in that same hotel, we were like talking in line and everyone's talking about where they're coming from and how we're all like, oh my gosh, we're like stranded. Are we going to be stuck here for another day? Like, what are we going to do? And I liken everything to the plot of a movie or a sitcom. It felt like a Hallmark movie where we're all like, oh my gosh, I guess we're all stuck here. We didn't get stuck there. Of course, we went home the next day. It wasn't that dramatic. But even in the elevator, there was just that sense of like resigned community where everybody felt like, well, what are you going to do? And we're LOLing about it and just kind of making the best of a bad situation. And then we tried to order pizza. The pizza guy got like stuck in the snow, but we really had no other option because we were in the airport parking lot, which was miles long. Like there was nowhere else for us to go and pizza was still delivering. So we were like, okay, well, we'll give him a good tip, but that's all we can really do. And then we had to order pizza from a different person and we felt so bad that he got stuck in the snow. It was a whole thing. The second guy got there safely and he was okay. And that was such a weird, like this, I hate to say it's a God thing because it has to do with Harry Potter, but bear with me. We were in the airport and I was like, I'm so upset. And I don't know, just making a mountain out of a molehill as I usually do. And it's one of those things again, felt like the end of the world at the time. I just wanted to be home. You're out of like clean, comfortable clothes. So you need to be back home for that reason. You feel so icky and you've been traveling. And then I get on TV. I'm scrolling through the hotel movies and there's a Harry Potter marathon going all night. And this is significant because on my winter bucket list, I had a Harry Potter marathon and I hadn't had time to do it because the season just got away from me. It was so chaotic with everything going on. And I was bummed out because I'm like, I really love to do my annual Harry Potter marathon and I haven't gotten to do it this year. So I wasn't going to have time if I went home because I had plans with my friends again. So whenever I got on TV and I found this whole marathon running all night, I was like, this kind of feels like a weird God wink. It's not a miracle by any means, but it feels like one of those nods from the universe, from God, that's just saying like, I see you, like this is intentional. It's not that big of a deal. Like just a little kind of like pat on the shoulder. Like it's okay. It's going to be okay. So then we watched Harry Potter movies and ate Domino's pizza in bed and listened to the radiator sound like a rocket ship was launching right there in our hotel room. And the heat was out. So it was freezing cold. And since we were coming from Vegas, I really didn't have that many warm clothes. So we definitely huddled together for warmth in that one. It was like a hotel room stranded one bed trope, except for it was me and my husband. So a little bit less exciting. But everything was okay. And then we came back on the next day and everything was actually just fine, believe it or not. Then the next time I went to Vegas was this past September and it was for a work trip. And that was so crazy. It was a kind of crazy that it wasn't crazy in like a party way. It was crazy in the mental way where I have like 3 or 4 notes app poems / short stories about my emotions. I don't know. I hope I'm not the only person that does that. But based on the number of memes I see about it on the internet, I don't think that I am. But sometimes I'll just turn into a philosopher whenever I'm really emotional and it's late at night and I just write things in my notes app that maybe I'll share one day. Maybe I won't. That's kind of personal. Again, TMI, even for me. But I flew out there and it was just the strangest thing because I had already been traveling for work for the past month or two. And that was a new thing that I didn't really anticipate. I know I've spoken ad nauseum about this, but it was just so formative for me in a way that I can't really describe because there's something about traveling with people who don't really know you that allows you to assume this different identity. And it's not that I did it on purpose, but you have your work persona, which usually only lives in your work meetings or on your phone calls or anything. And then to travel and to be with a different group of people who really don't know you for days at a time, for meals, like for everything, it's almost like they don't know me. And there's so much freedom in that because sometimes you just get tired of being yourself. That doesn't make any sense. And I think I'm going to come across as schizophrenic, but it's just freeing to have people who have no expectations from you outside of the work that you're doing for them. So I ended up loving like going on these trips. And yeah, it was a lot of my schedule and it was kind of lonely at times. It was very isolating, but then it's almost like whenever I got through airport security in Springfield, you just become this version of you that you have to be for the trip and you get to cease being yourself for a little while. And I know that sounds like it's just riddled with self-loathing. It's not. I generally like myself, but it's just weird and it's nice. So flying out to Vegas for that trip was so much fun. And I liked the people that I was traveling with. And again, I love the work that I do. Love Vegas. And I remember just having another one of those moments like, what is my life? Walking into this hotel, checking into this suite, And of course, the name was under Hannah McClelland because that's my stage name. That's what all of my business trips are always under, not Reuter, just McClelland. And technically it's my legal name, which is not my legal last name. But it's a massive room. There's like a giant ornate bathroom with a sunken in tub. Everything in Vegas is just bigger and more decorative than you even can imagine. Unless you've been there, you can probably imagine it then. Giant king size bed, walk-in closet. Then there's like a sunken in living area. 3 or 4 steps down, there's a giant wraparound sectional, a big TV, these massive curtains that open up to the Vegas skyline. And I was just looking at it and being like, what is my life? I never foresaw even working for myself. And then to be here and getting paid to do it and have the flexibility to just go to Vegas on this contract. And I have this massive hotel room in the city that I love, where my favorite book is literally set in this city. Just so many things made me feel like, what is going on? Like, what is my life? And I had a great time working. It really just shooting content for this conference. And that wasn't it wasn't overwhelmingly exciting. I won't lie to you. But I just loved every part of being out of my normal life. But then it also made me appreciate my normal life more. And I remember coming back from one of the work dinners that we had, and I'd had a martini. So of course you're feeling all warm and fuzzy. You're feeling good. And I went back and took a bath and was just like sitting in this bathtub, feeling the buzz from the gin, having all of these existential thoughts. Like, I am here in the city that no one even knows me. No one knows who I am. Really, no one knows anything about me. I'm here by myself. I'm hundreds of miles away from anyone who actually is aware of like my soul and my life. And it just threw me into this weird loop of like, man, like anything really can happen in the world. And maybe I can't convey how much of a loop it really threw me for, but I feel like it shifted something in me, and it made me cherish my little snow globe of the world even more, because as much fun as it is to step out of your life and go somewhere else and be whoever you want to. And it turns out who I would want to be is not that far off from who I actually am, because I just, am who I am all the time. But it made me appreciate coming back home and like going to a coffee shop and having the barista know my name. Also appreciate coffees that aren't $9 because they be expensive somewhere else. And a husband who like waits for me to get home, and friends who check in with me, and all of those things. Like, it made me feel like I was coming back into my regularly scheduled programming, and I had a whole new appreciation for it. With that being said, I still had an amazing time, and I do look back so fondly on that time of my life, but it was just good. And then the last time was this most recent trip. So I've been to Vegas a total of 5 times, and it's very fun, and I would definitely go back again. But it just is such a weird thing. I think you leave pieces of yourself in all the places that you've been. Like, every little Airbnb that I've stayed in, every hotel, every trip I've taken with different groups of friends, I just always feel like I leave a little fragment of myself there. Like, there will always be a piece of me having that existential crisis in the bathtub at the Palazzo in Vegas. There will always be that girl that was like head over heels in puppy love, meeting all these people for the first time, so nervous, like so unsure about the future, living in Vegas. And then there will be this version of Austin and I that came pre-kid, just loving marriage, loving life, young, 24 and 29 years old. There's just so many versions of us that will live in that place forever. And I think it's so special. So sorry for getting on my soapbox for a little bit, but I would love to hear about any places that you guys have that hold like a special significance to you, because I know Vegas is not mine. It will never be mine. Millions of people come through there every single day. It's not mine, but for me, it almost feels like mine in a way. And I would love to know what place is yours. Anyways, okay, so we're back. It's currently Wednesday. It is 11:38 p.m. and I am having a fun work day. It's a little bit busy. I had a shoot cancel that's right after this, so I'm probably gonna go camp out at a coffee shop and work. And those are my favorite kinds of things. Again, something I didn't appreciate enough until I was traveling so much and gone so frequently for that stint of a few months, that I didn't have any time to go camp out at a coffee shop, because the time it takes to even like get somewhat presentable, drive to a coffee shop, order, find a seat, settle in, that's like a 45-minute span that I could have used to get work done in my house. That's not an exaggeration. I was packed to the freaking gills at that time. But now, having a little bit more leeway and being able to do that and camp out and like have the little social interactions, I just think it's so special. So the fact that I get to do that is a little mountain of my day. With that being said, girl, I've been anxious lately. So let me go through a list of things that are making me anxious, and then I'm going to elaborate on them. These range from heavy to literally the dumbest thing you've ever heard. First, work and things being out of my control. I'm controlling. I have never been shy about saying that. I like to be aware of what's going on. I like to be in control of what's going on. I like to know what's coming next for me. And one of the biggest things that I always struggle with is the season that I'm in and needing to be able to define it with some kind of a category. For example, last year, I knew definitively I was in a really heavy work grind stage. And that was okay. I could deal with the chaos and the struggle and the lack of personal time, all of that, because I wasn't in a social stage. I wasn't in a stage where I'm thinking about my fitness or my physique or my diet or anything like that, because the focus for that season was work. So I put everything I had into focusing on work, and it overwhelmed me, but it didn't scare me because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I still felt like I had some semblance of control. Not to say that it wasn't still difficult, because you can listen to the episodes from that time period and you'll see that it was actually. And then going into the stage of life where Austin and I were trying to start a family and thinking that that season was about to take off and losing the pregnancy, that I think was difficult for so many reasons. But one of them that people overlook is that you just think your life is about to change and then it doesn't. So I thought that I was shifting from this career stage to this phase of motherhood and pregnancy. And I was like mentally fully pivoted, like did the full 180. I'm ready to go. And then that is taken away and it changes. And then you're kind of left like, well, what am I supposed to do? Because I already kind of left. I got off that boat, and now this boat is not here and it's supposed to be. So I'm just drowning, I guess. And that's where I felt like I was for a long time. And I struggled because I so badly still wanted to be in that stage of motherhood. And for all these reasons, for medical reasons and physical reasons and emotional reasons, then you can't try right away. And I didn't even know if I wanted to try right away. And that was difficult because now not only am I not where I wanted to be and where I feel like I am emotionally, which is transitioning to become a mom, I can't, and I don't know when I will be able to. And I physically can't make myself care about everything I used to care about. I can't care about work like I used to. It just doesn't hold the same gravitas in my life. So then I felt like I was in an in-between stage, like I'm just killing time until my doctor clears me and until I feel like I'm ready to try again. So all this is just lost time. It just doesn't matter. This is all just insignificant waste of time, waste of my life. But that's so sad. And, what if we do get pregnant fairly quickly once we start to try? This is our last 6 to 9 to 12 months of being just a married couple without preparing our lives for a baby. So I had to kind of make a conscious shift of thinking that this is a wasted time because I'm just not where I want to be yet, and thinking about this is a really important, special final time. And I've talked to my other mom friends that have struggled to get pregnant or have gone through loss. One of the biggest comforts to me is that one day I'll be at, a high school basketball game or high school track meet or, a science competition for my high school kids. And I'll look back on this stage 20 years prior and think it was like that, and think that it was so small and such a blip in the scheme of our lives. And even if this journey to conceive lasts for years, then one day it will make sense. And one day I'll look back and think, I can't see it any other way. I was supposed to have these exact kids at this exact time so that they could meet these friends. And like, it will seem like it made perfect sense. I know that it will one day, but now it doesn't make any sense. And it feels like it's taking forever. And you always wonder like, well, is it going to happen? Is it not? Like there's so much anxiety with it. And like so many things, I'll look back one day and be like, well, if I just knew God was going to take care of it, like I wouldn't have stressed out. I've done that with careers. I've done that with everything. I've done that with my business, like friendship situations, everything. I always am like, well, if I knew God was going to take care of it, like, girl, I wouldn't have stressed out about it. But that's the whole point. Like, you should always have faith that God will take care of it, that things will work themselves out and that things will be okay. And if I have always come to that conclusion in the past, retrospectively, why can't I just accept that now? So I decided to have faith and say, I know that God will do what God needs to do. My life will make sense. It will all be okay. So I'm going to be happy now because I know it will work out, and I'm not going to choose to have so much anxiety and stress hoping it will and wondering if it will, because I just know that it will. That was my decision. And it is not just like a one-time thing. You have to constantly remind yourself like, no, I decided to be okay with this. So that is what I had kind of put my effort into, and then still oscillated between, well, am I wanting a family? Am I wanting a career? Because I always struggle with a severe one-track mind, and I need to be all into things. So I have a hard time being like focusing my energy into my career, but like only halfway, because I also want my heart to be here. It's just not black and white. And I don't even know that I wish that it was. because I have felt things so deeply because of the way that I'm able to be so intense with them. At times it's debilitating, but that's okay. So over the past few months, it's been almost 4 months since I had a miscarriage and 2-ish months since I've been cleared to start trying again. And we really haven't, like, not that you guys really need to know or care, but I've wanted things to kind of just happen as they happen. I don't want to put pressure on it, and it's still so soon that I'm not concerned. Obviously, if time passes and nothing's happening, then we'll seek further intervention. But for now, I just don't want to make it something that causes me so much anxiety and is becoming a chore. So the struggle has been to balance, well, I can't throw myself back into my work because I still have hope that life will change, but I also don't want to put my life on hold just in hopes that it will change soon. So that's been a really interesting balance for me to try and find, and things being out of my control, work fluctuating. Obviously, we're in a wild economic time. I'm not going to even pretend to explain or pretend like I understand it fully, to be honest with you. But working with small business owners, the nature of that is that things just go up and down. And like sometimes you have crazy months where there's a lot of demand and a lot of, a la carte freelance work that comes my way, which I had last month. And then this month there's just less. And you might have clients that don't renew because they've had their own financial situations. And sometimes it's difficult not to have anxiety about that, because one moment you're on top of the world and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm Jeff freaking Bezos, baby. I'm making all this money. And then the next month I'm like, should I panhandle? Should I go out by the side of the road and ask for money? And it's never that serious, but it's one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn through entrepreneurship is that you can't let the good times get you too high on yourself and too proud. And you can't let the low moments get you too down on yourself and feeling ashamed. At the end of the day, people are going to pay me what they're going to pay me. I'm going to make what I'm going to make, but none of those numbers define my value and my worth. And I want them to when things are good. I'm like, oh my gosh, look how much I'm bringing in. This is great. I am so important and special and smart. But then when that number tanks, even if it's out of my control, you don't want that same thing to be true. I don't want that to be my value. So that gives me anxiety in waves. And it, for some reason, has been giving me more anxiety than usual lately. I don't know if it's just because I'm kind of focusing back on my work, therefore it has more emphasis and more sway over me. But I've just been struggling more with not knowing. Like when things start to uptick, I'm always like, can I handle all this work? Yes, I can and I have, but it's always harder whenever I don't feel like my heart is as in it as it has been before. And that's not to say I don't love it. I do, but it feels more like a job than a passion. And then also when things start to go down, I'm always like, am I a failure actually? Do I suck at everything? And is it a mistake that I even made it to this point? So I've been juggling with that. Next, I'm losing my hair. That's awesome. I know I mentioned a couple episodes back that you could see like a line right here where my part was. And I just thought that I had done my hair weird. And then I kept noticing in different ponytails and different things, I'm like, why do I keep seeing so much scalp? Like, why am I able to just do that and see so much of my head? Yeah, it turns out that's a symptom / side effect of miscarriage. And sometimes it doesn't show up until 2 to 3 months later. And I know that's also a side effect of anything postpartum because it just has to do with a certain hormone dropping. But I didn't know that. And that's just a great other thing to be insecure about. So that's been stressing me out. Now that I noticed it, I feel like I'm hyper aware. And I'm always like, I'll take a photo and be like, oh my gosh, is my hair thin here? And I've always had really thick hair. So it's just, I don't know. That was never an insecurity of mine. So to unlock that is always just great. I am taking a progesterone supplement. I don't know if I've mentioned that on here before, but I started taking it a month or two ago, just because you have like several rounds of blood work after you have a miscarriage to make sure everything is Gucci. And one of the things that my doctor had said was low is my progesterone. Not low as an outside of the normal range. There's like a window of what they consider normal, and I'm just on the very bottom level of it. So it's not like I'm deficient or concerningly low, but it's low enough that they said that it could be a concern, or in the future, if we struggle to conceive, then they would put me on it. So I see a more personal doctor, and they're like, well, we'll just put you on it now in like a lower dose, and it shouldn't have any side effects besides better sleep, lower anxiety, and more regular periods. And I said, why aren't we all on this? That sounds like ideal in every way. What they didn't tell me is that it will make you break out, which is awesome. And it can make you have just not irregular cycles, but like weird. Again, TMI, sorry to my 3% of male listeners, but that just throws you off. And like anything that takes you out of your equilibrium that you're struggling to find is hard. So that's another reason I'm stressed out, is that I'm breaking out again, which is great because I feel like I had finally gotten to this homeostasis with my skin where I had figured my shit out. Things were going well. And then to get thrown back into this, I'm like, again, I could clean up my diet. I could do other things, but will I? Will I take away one of the few things that brings me just complete and undisputable joy? I'm talking about candy. Maybe. Who knows? Probably not. Again, a third trivial thing is that my face is so round. I don't know if it's hormones. I don't know if it's my awful diet and my high sugar consumption. I don't know if it's just my face filling out as I have gotten to the ripe age of 25. But I started to spiral with this because I took a couple photos and I was looking at my face. I'm like, why is it so ovular? It's so round. And, I see a lot of myself, too much of myself, honestly, because I'm in content for clients. I'm in my own stuff because I like to make content. I film and edit the podcast. So I just have maybe an abnormally high amount of screen time looking at myself. So then I notice all the things that I think are wrong, like the hair loss. So then I looked at myself like a week or so ago and I'm like, why is my face so round? Has it always been that round? So then I look back at photos of myself, of course, from a year or so ago, probably whenever I was eating a little bit healthier. And I'm like, no, it hasn't always been that round. So then it, again, makes you hyper aware of like how you look. And then I start to think like, okay, should I be doing the sauna like twice a week? Should I be sweating things out? Should I be using the gua sha? What should I be doing? Do I need to start jogging more? Should I cut out dairy? Like all these crazy lifestyle changes that I don't even want to do. And it's something that I hadn't even noticed until recently. And again, it could just be because I've had an abnormally awful diet recently with all the celebrations and traveling and all of that. So I don't really know, but it adds to your anxiety because it's one more thing that whenever you're stressed about other stuff and then you throw in like, oh my gosh, and my hair is thin and I'm breaking out and I feel like my face is really round. What am I supposed to do? It just doesn't make you feel better. Next, my brother is just in like a very difficult transitional situation. You guys know about his injury. You know that he is playing baseball and it's his senior year and he has one more year of eligibility left. And he's going through a lot of things right now due to his injury and then just due to being a college athlete. And I feel like this sense of parentage over him almost, like, not that I raised him because I didn't, but I feel like I had a hand in it at least. Like he's my baby brother and I just want the best for him and I care about him so much in his emotional well-being. And then to have him, 2 plane rides away across the country in a different time zone and struggling, it just makes it harder for anyone that you care about to not be able to be there for them. So if you guys happen to think about it and you're a praying individual, then just send one up for him. Shoot him a positive message. Send him money for coffee because he's broke, homie. So whatever, just give him some positive thoughts and love. And that's just always difficult no matter what. Next, feeling pulled in a lot of directions. I've talked about this. I've talked about it socially. I feel like I'm overcommitted. I feel like I want to do a lot of things and I'm not doing any of them well. And that's kind of perpetual because I am, as much as I'm one track minded with like the season of my life, I'm very multifaceted in what I'm interested in and like what I want to pursue. So like at the same time, I want this podcast to be amazing. Then I also want to draw all the time because I'm in a big drawing kick and I just really want to spend my time doing that. I also love reading. I also want to pursue content creation because that makes me happy. I want to run and work out more and like stick to a more set workout regimen. I want to see all my friends and spend time with my family and my grandparents. And I just feel like I'm there's so much I want to do and there's not enough time in the day. If I had any superpower, as much as I would like to say I'd love to fly, I think I truly would pick the ability to like freeze time and then me keep going. Like if I could freeze time around me, film an entire episode, edit the episode, and then resume time, amazing. If I could freeze time, do all my work, and then still have the entire like 16-hour day of daylight to go do other stuff, I would do that. If I could omit sleep entirely from my schedule, I would, and then just have the time to do things. So I feel like I'm constantly battling that and being pulled in 2 directions. Again, trivial. Our house needs a deep clean and I keep the house clean, but I feel like I don't deep clean it. And there's just different stuff like the area under the countertops that get really gross and grimy. For some reason, I'm noticing it more and it just like constantly is like nagging in the back of my head. Like your floors are filthy and your toilets need to be cleaned and your shower drain is probably clogged with hair. And I know that would not be that difficult to remedy, but we just got back from being gone and whatever. There's a million excuses, but those things just, again, it makes me feel like a little bit more high strung. Also, my car needs an oil change and I haven't gotten one yet because I keep forgetting. And I don't remember until I get in my car in the morning and I have a lot of stuff to do. So we'll see. Hold me accountable. If I say this again next week for the 3rd week in a row, say, girl, get your life together, get an oil change or your car's going to blow up on the interstate and then you'll really be anxious. Next, the algorithms on social media suck. And I wish I didn't care, but it's kind of my job to care. it's just frustrating. I could go on a whole tangent about this, but I won't because I want to make a whole other episode about social media. But all of my clients want their content to perform, obviously, and I want it to perform as well. So my whole job and existence is not only to create good content, but for it to hopefully perform. And sometimes it's just out of your control. And that's just very disheartening whenever you spend so much time and energy researching something and trying to get something to do well for a client in a business that you're passionate about and that you've worked hard for, and you just can't control it. So like, I'm sure other people work in jobs where results are out of their control, but like if I am doing everything right and putting all my effort into it and then a video gets 300 views and then I have to answer to my client for why the video got 300 views, I'm like, I don't know. It's out of my control and the algorithms just suck. So we'll divulge all of my feelings about that in a future episode, but for now I'm going to move forward. Okay, so I have some notes on anxiety because obviously those are the things that are stressing me out lately. And I just wanted to talk more about it because I feel like it's something that we all go through and struggle with no matter what season of life we're in. But I do want to note that these are my thoughts for anxiety in a way that is not being treated clinically. So I have been on different medications for anxiety before. And, you know, what has worked the most for me has been treating ADHD. But I also am like tapering off of medication for that because it's not a medication you can take when you're pregnant. And the goal is to get pregnant. So why not wean off of it now? You know what I'm saying? So that could have a hand in why I'm struggling a little bit more lately to juggle everything. But again, it's for the best. But I do want to say, if you're struggling with anxiety to a level that you think you need professional help, if you need counseling, if you need medication, then please seek that out because nothing that I say on this podcast is ever going to be revolutionary enough to help that level of an anxiety disorder. And there's no shame in that. There's no, you know, you can't control if you have a chemical imbalance. You can't control if you're in a season where you just really need some extra support. So please hear me whenever I say if that's something that you need, then you should absolutely take extra steps. This is more for the anxiety that we all struggle with, but don't really know how to kick. And maybe you don't need to take an extra step beyond self-regulation, but you need something. That's kind of the sweet spot where we're falling in. Like, it's not just being a little stressed out, but it's also not a severe anxiety disorder. That's what we're talking about here. So I never want to come across as like, oh my gosh, you're struggling with debilitating anxiety and panic attacks. Here's a quote I found on Pinterest. Hope that helps. That's not how I want to be. So what we're going to talk about is a few things that have helped me mentally. Maybe they'll help you. Maybe you'll think I'm the dumbest person alive, but only time will tell. So first of all, my biggest thing that I lean to whenever I'm struggling is structure. Again, the thing that's stressing me out the most being my lack of control. But structure always helps me because it gives me so much more predictability and so much more like I can visualize how my day is going to be because I have structured it to a point that I control everything that's controllable. And there's always going to be variance. There's always things that cancel or things that pop up or things that you don't really anticipate that you have to deal with. But the most control that I can have over my time tends to help me out. So even if it's like a set wake up time every day, a set morning routine, I wake up about 7:15, 7:30. I make coffee. I start laundry if I'm working from home. I journal, and then I go about my day. So at least I know that my mornings are going to look the same every single day. I have certain things that make me happy that I can count on, and structuring my days out well in advance, like planning my weeks out, planning my shoots out as much as I can, being that I work with other small business owners and moms who have like, you know, things that pop up last minute. That helps me. I also like to have a list. Every single day I have a running list of my to-do list for today, for tomorrow, and for the next day. And then I have my running to-do list of personal things and work things. So things that don't necessarily fall into one specific day, but they need to get done. For example, get my oil change is on my personal list. Buy a birthday gift for my bestie on my personal list. Work things like edit certain galleries, follow up with this, send this invoice, and so on. So everything is written down. Nothing's left to chance. And I don't have to worry about my like frantic, fanatic brain dropping the ball on something, which is good. Those help me. That might be, you know, go without saying. But if you are somebody who needs that, then I think you have to find a perfect tightrope balance between structuring everything to lessen your anxiety, but also relinquishing control for the rest of it. So similarly to days that I'm traveling, you plan everything out, you have everything structured, but you go into the airport knowing like things are probably going to change. It's probably going to be stressful. I'm going to have to pivot, and that's okay because you go into it knowing that. So if I have my structure, like my framework of my week or my life set up, I know which days I'm going to work out. I know which days I'm going to do this, like which days I'm working from home. then whatever happens in the in-between I can deal with because I've got that much under control. So rather than having to deal with the guesswork and the fluctuation of 100% of my life, I'm only dealing with the fluctuation of 60% or 30% or whatever that in-between might be. So that does help me. Next, this is the one that you might think I'm crazy on, but worst case scenario thinking has actually helped me a lot. And here's what I mean. So anxiety tends to make you think everything is going to crumble around you. Like everything is the worst case. Everything is going to be awful and the world's going to fall apart and like you're never going to be okay. So whenever I'm stressed about something, I go to the worst case. So let's talk about any one of these things really. Okay, let's talk about me losing my hair. Say I lose all of my hair. It all starts to fall out. It's so thin. I have to shave it. And then what? My mom had chemo and she had to shave her head and she still looked beautiful and she found a way to rock the hair scarves and life went on and her hair grew back. Will all my hair fall out? Probably not. Is it even noticeable to people who aren't me? Probably not. But worst case scenario, all of it falls out and then what? I'm still healthy otherwise. I still have a husband that loves me. I still have good friends. I don't think any of them are with me solely because of my hair. So worst case scenario, I buy a wig and I rock that for a while and I save money on dyeing my hair. Would it be ideal? No, definitely not. I don't want to lose my hair. I don't want it to be thin at all. But it gives me some peace to know like, okay, if I lose it, the world doesn't end. With my clients and things being out of my control, say they all cancel their contracts, they all leave me tomorrow. I have not a penny to pinch together. Everything goes away. What do? I go get a job with my degree that I still have. That's not that bad. Would it suck? Yes. Would I be ashamed and disappointed and embarrassed and cry a lot? Yes. But would the world end? No. I did it before and I was happy in my job before and I would find a way to be happy with that again, or I would rebuild it and I would work harder to get back to where I was. The world doesn't end. So all of these things that stress me out, like they're not the end of the world. And even with, the heavier things that I've been dealing with over the past couple months, you ask yourself like worst case scenario, what can happen? And sometimes the worst case scenario does happen. And life still goes on. You still have the people around you that love you. Even when you lose a loved one, you still have other people around you that care about you. You still have faith that you'll see them again. You still have things to comfort you and things to live for. And you just have to understand like it is somewhat of a choice at the end of the day to stay in that place or to move on. And worst case scenario thinking can be detrimental to some people. So use this at your own risk. But for me, when I'm freaking out about a client, like, oh my gosh, what if they're gonna get mad at me? What if they hate this shoot? What if I do this concept and they want me to take it down and they're so mad at it and then they fire me? Okay, and what? And what? So they fire me. And then I run into them, once or twice a year in Springfield, and it's awkward for a few seconds, but not even really, because if I'm nice to them and I'm polite, like it doesn't have to be awkward. It's uncomfy, but I can still say, hey, how are things going? That's great. I've been in that situation where people don't want to work with me anymore and maybe they're not so nice about it, but you hold your head as high as you can and you handle it with grace, and then you cry to your husband for 3 days. And then whenever you inevitably run into them, because it's a small town, you just have to be polite about it and just, hey, how are things going? I'm glad you're doing well. I saw this. That's it. And no one can be mad at you if you did your best and you're nice to them. No one can be upset. They can say, well, she's actually not as good at her job as I thought she was. That's fine. Other people think that I am, and that's okay. I'm talking so much to myself as I'm preaching this to you guys, but there's only so much you can do at the end of the day, and not everyone's going to like you or want to keep you around. Not everything is going to go in your favor, obviously, but what is the worst case scenario? It's probably going to be okay. Life will probably go on. So that helps me a lot. And I do literally take the time whenever I'm freaking out. I'll start to think like, okay, well, what's the worst that could happen then? And I will go through it all the way to the end and then be like, okay. Even whenever I had skin cancer a couple summers ago, I was freaking out and spiraling and being like, what happens if they do this and they have to do a pig skin graft on my leg? And what if I have an ugly scar? And what if it comes back? And what if it's spread? And what if I have to do this? Okay, and what? Then you deal with it. Because guess what? It did come back as cancer. And then I did have to have a surgery. And I do have a really ugly scar. And now I have to have skin checks every 6 months and still get stuff removed sometimes. But it wasn't worst case scenario. It was not the ideal scenario, which would be, it was clear. But you deal with it as the time comes. Like you pay the medical bills and you have the surgery and you clean your stitches 3 times a day and get grossed out by it. And you have a little divot in your calf that you're insecure about, but you move on. Like it's okay. Everything is okay. And when I look back and think about all of these things, because I've been an anxious person my whole life, unfortunately, But whenever I look back, I know I have been anxious in every stage of my life. But whenever I look back at, whenever I worked at Texas Roadhouse and I worked at the bank and I was so nervous and going through college and not sure how I was going to pay for these things and in a long distance relationship and I had so much to be anxious about and I felt very insecure about who I was, then I know all those things are true. But when I look back at events that happened during that time of my life, I remember how much fun this one birthday dinner was with my friends, or I remember this weekend road trip, or I remember Friendsgiving, and I remember the happy moments or these coworkers that I really liked to have closing shift with. I never remember like, oh my gosh, I was up so late for 3 nights in a row because I was so ashamed of my skin and I couldn't figure out how to heal my acne. And I was worried that my boyfriend was going to break up with me because I felt so ugly. I don't remember those things. Like if I really think about it, I know that they were true, but I don't have memories of them. I have memories of the life that happened around the anxiety. So with that knowledge, I try and go forward thinking, what is the life right now that's happening around my anxiety? It's the opportunity to do this podcast, to see my different friends, to see clients that I love so much, and to make fun content, and the house that we have right now that might be a little bit messy around the edges, but I still love it. And I love our neighbors and I love our neighborhood. And I just love my routines. And that is the life that's happening around the anxiety. I don't want to let the anxiety swallow that. And if you let it, it will crash all over you like a tidal wave and it will keep coming and you'll find more things to be anxious about and it will just compound and then it will debilitate you and prevent you from living your life, which will just give you more anxiety. So for me, it's to think about like, will this matter in 5 years? Will this even matter in 5 months? No, none of this is going to matter. None of these things that I'm talking about right now are going to matter. The house will get clean. I will probably have seasons where I wish I was pulled in more directions. I'll probably have seasons where I feel like I'm just not doing anything. And then I will miss feeling so busy and wonder why I ever complained about it. I will have times where my work lulls and I feel like I have too much control over things and I want things to be more chaotic. I know that Evan will be in a different stage. He will be happy and thriving and on top of the world at some point again, whether it's sooner or later. I have confidence and faith that he will be. My face probably will get more round and less round throughout my life, and that's okay. My skin will get better and it will get worse. My hair will get thicker and it will get thinner, and that's okay. It will get gray one day as well, and that's totally fine. None of these things are going to matter. And if it's in 5 months or 5 years or whenever they cease to be important to me, it's not worth spending all of this time stressing about it now. And a lot of that is just instinct. My brain and body's like, girl, we got to stress. I penciled it in 4:00 today. We're having a panic attack. We're stressing. It's going to hit you and we're going to take some time for it. Some of those things are out of my control and I can't help them. But the things that I can control are how long I let myself dwell on them, what I choose to do about them, how much I feed this little anxious like gremlin that just lives in my stomach. Like it lives like right about here and it just claws at my insides and like clenches and makes me feel awful. Let me know if you have a gremlin of your own. But you can just choose not to give any more time to it than it will already demand of you, because you can't stop those thoughts from coming. You can't stop those knots in your gut from forming, and you can't stop all of these spirals from starting to like pull you into them. But you can stop how long you choose to stay in that space. And the more you feed your anxiety and the more that you humor those thoughts and let them take root and think about, oh my gosh, well, that actually is really bad. I didn't think about it like that. The more that you will succumb to it. And again, I'm so not talking to people who need like a Xanax to get through the day. Take your Xanax, take your Prozac, take whatever you need to. I've been there. Sometimes you just need to be medicated in order to get through the day. And I understand that. And my heart goes out to you. This is not for you. This is for the in-betweeners. Like I said, if you are having these anxious thoughts and you're not doing anything to combat them, then you're doing yourself a disservice. And I know mental health is such a difficult thing to talk about because you never want to sound insensitive or sound like grab yourself up by the bootstraps and just move on, girl. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, if you're not taking any steps, you're just letting yourself wallow in it and just continually feel beat down and in distress all of the time. At some point, you have a hand in that. You have to, whether it's meditation, whether it's going on walks, whether it's taking some time off of your screens or confessing your burdens to someone who loves you. Confess it to me, girl. I love you. I don't even know who you are because only 15 of you listeners reach out to me. But if anyone messages me and they're like, hey, I need to talk, I'm not going to say, what? I will say, you want me to call you? You want to do this here or do you want me to text you? Do you want to actually have coffee? Come over. Here's my address. I'm not kidding you. I want to be everybody's best friend. And I wish that I could. Again, if I could stop time, I would have coffee with every single person who listens to this podcast if they would have me. But if you have no one to talk to, I will talk to you. I will talk through all of this because I've been fortunate enough to have people who have listened to me through all of my anxieties and all of my stresses. And, you know, it's helped me. It's helped me more than I can say. So if anyone is lacking that, then I would love to be that person for you. Moving along. Anxiety can keep you from doing anything because it can give you this like decision fatigue, this executive anxiety where I'll start to think about, like, if I have an afternoon free, I'll think, okay, I have 8 things on my work to-do list. I have 3 things on my personal to-do list. I haven't seen these 3 friends in a while. I haven't seen my grandparents in 11 days. I haven't called my brother. The house is really filthy. I also need to work out. We don't have any groceries. I know you guys look at this, especially you moms. I know you have that plus 10. So you get this like dysfunction where you're just like, I don't know what to do. I could do all these things. I could do none of these things. And then you start to think through which order of operations is like the most productive, what makes the most sense. And then you end up doing none of it because you spent too much time trying to figure out what was going to be the best Jenga way to fit your schedule together. And not Jenga, Tetris. Oh my gosh. Whatever. It's almost like you just have to throw yourself into it. Like you just have to pick something and start and commit to it. And that's kind of how I'm living my life. I structure everything I can. And then with those gaps, I'm going to try and tackle this. And if it wasn't the best thing that I could have done, like, cause sometimes you finish something, I'm like, I could have gone to the store and come back and cooked dinner and done all of those things in the time it took me to do that one reel for a client. And sometimes that's okay. What am I going to do though? Does it really have that much bearing on my life? No. How I schedule my day? No, I'm not that important. I know the butterfly effect is real. And if I choose to go to Walmart at 8 p.m., it's going to subconsciously affect somebody who's living their life over in Hong Kong. I know all those things, but will it really change that much of your life? Probably not. Next, I have this quote. It's not groundbreaking, but it is on my wisdom Pinterest board. And that is the additional book of the Bible to me. That's my bonus chapter. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Whatever. This quote is so simple, but it's so revolutionary to me. It says, it's not really a difficult thing unless you decide it's a difficult thing. Otherwise, it's just the next thing in life that you're figuring out. Let me run that back. It's not really a difficult thing unless you decide it's a difficult thing. Otherwise, it's just the next thing in life that you're figuring out. There's so much peace in that because all of these issues I'm having right now, my hormones, my hair, my friends and their anxieties, my work, those aren't mountains unless I decide that they're mountains. Those are just things that I'm figuring out. And in life, we're constantly figuring things out. We're constantly working to get through these obstacles and get over the next hurdle. Life is never just going to be like this flat linear path because what fun would that be? There's always like obstacles and little like tree roots we have to jump over and like bear traps that somebody hid. That's too visual of an analogy, but you know what I mean? It's never just going to be a straight paved path. Sometimes it might be, but other times there's just terrain and there's things that you have to climb through and overcome. And that's okay. Those aren't giant pitfalls unless you allow them to be and unless you decide, because if not, it's just the next thing that you're figuring out. What are you figuring out right now? So I'm trying to reframe that in my head from being like, what's stressing me out? What's giving me anxiety? What am I dealing with? Versus just what am I figuring out? Because I am figuring it out. And in every situation in the past, I've figured it out, whether it's the clock kind of runs out and the issue resolves itself, or I find a solution, or I figure out how to cope with it. Everything is figured out at some point or another. Like the day will end, everything will pass, and you'll move on. And then you'll have a new set of things to figure out. And if you choose to see it in the way that like there's always something new to be anxious about, there's always a new trial, there's always a new problem, then you'll be exhausted because there is always a new thing to figure out. There is always more to be anxious about. And to think of a life that's just riddled with complications and hard things and frustrations, yeah, that's really shitty. That really sucks because I don't want to look ahead at the next 75 years of my life because I will live abnormally long. I already know it. If I'm thinking about all of those issues that are yet to come, where's the hope in that? Like, where's the fun in that? You just deal with things as they come. It's just things that we're figuring out. It's just whatever challenges are on this level, whatever plot points are on this season of life, whatever the writers decided to throw in for some character development. That's it. That's all that you have to think about it as. Again, much easier said than done. I'm saying this to you as I'm like, I was up until 3 a.m. last night, just kind of staring at the ceiling, listening to my diffuser like plop water around and thinking about all the different things that I could do in my life that would theoretically make it easier. And some things might, some things that I could change might resolve some of these problems, but it's never going to be 100%. It's never going to be fixed or perfect. It's just as good as we're able to make it. So my dirty floors and my thin hair and my work stress. All of that is just part of this stage of my life. And even if it's not going to fit into a cookie cutter, mold, Pinterest board, season, era, like I can't fit into that, and that's okay. I'm just in between. And in between can be really great, except for whenever you're in between pant sizes. That's not so much fun, but everything else, great. So that's all I really got for you. I know that was approximately 65 minutes of speaking, but I've just been feeling very heavily like tight in my heart and soul. And there's not really any significant reason, like for all intents and purposes, life is good for me right now. I know a lot of people are dealing with way worse things, but it's even more frustrating almost in that way, because then you have the frustration of like, why am I upset? Like, why am I not just enjoying my life? There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. Everything's fine. Why can't I feel like it's fine? And then that makes you anxious. And then you just kind of spiral. So this is for all of you girls who are struggling. I am here for you. I see you. I stand with you. Unfortunately, we're all in this boat together and the boat is sinking and we're all stressed out and drowning, but everything's going to be okay. So I would love to hear from you guys. Last week's episode had approximately 700 views, and guess what I heard from? 20 people. That's okay. I'm thankful for all the 20 people. I just want to hear from the rest of you every so often. I feel like Patrick in that episode where he like goes back home to his house and there's all the eyes like underneath his home and he's like, who are you people? That's how I feel. I know that it's not really realistic to hear from everybody, but if you're listening to this right now, or if you're watching it, if you made it to the last 60 seconds of the episode, what's stopping you from messaging me? What's stopping you from sending me your favorite song? What's stopping you from sending me the last meme that you saved? Nothing. I want to see it. I want to hear from you. This has been a broadcast from Hannah McClellan-Reuter. Okay, thank you for listening. I love you guys so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye.